Let's roll.
All right. Okay. We're rolling. We're live. Okay. Looks like we'll make sure that everyone's coming in now. Got Brandon, Elias. Okay. Perfect. Maricela, people are jumping in now. Exciting, exciting, exciting. Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting very shortly here. It's a wonderful presentation tonight. We've got two amazing guests here. We're very thankful to have them with us, and also too to be collaborating with Streets Are Safe, Streets Are for Everyone. And without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. My name is Roman Garcia, and I represent the Public and Government Affairs team here at AAA, Traffic Safety specifically. And we're excited because we have two special guests with us tonight. We have the Executive Director of Streets Are for Everyone, Damian Kevin, and we also have the Director of Traffic Safety Advocacy for AAA's National Office, Jake Nelson. So I've said enough, and I'd like to go ahead and give the floor to Jake and Damon to introduce themselves. And please, without further ado, Jake, take it away.
Thanks, Roman. Hey, everybody. My name's Jake, and I work at AAA's National Office in Washington, D.C. And so my job at, at AAA is to advise on research and policy for the work that we do in highway safety across the United States. My background is in public health. In fact, I used to run a health department in Chicago for several years before coming to AAA, working on everything from childhood obesity prevention, responsible sexual behavior, drug substance abuse, all kinds of traditional public health and safety issues. And so I'm happy to be at AAA and working in the area of traffic injury prevention. I am going to take the next 10 or so minutes to provide a high-level overview for all of you about what some of the main drivers are in traffic crashes in the United States. And so think of the content that I provide to you as a 30,000-foot overview to give you some ideas and to spark some ideas for you in terms of the kinds of angles that you could take in developing your PSAs or your artwork. You could end up at the end of the day choosing none of the data that I share with you, which is entirely fine. And maybe some of what I share with you today will spark an idea for you to dig into your own research and to come up with a unique angle for the product that you create. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. This is a slide that shows the number of people killed in traffic crashes between the years of 2000 and 2022. And so you can see the huge dip here where there was a low in the number of people killed in highway crashes in the United States in about 2011, 2012, and then it starts to climb. And you'll notice that it climbs pretty steeply right at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so at the end of my talk today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we know about why that happened and what some of the main drivers of that huge spike in the number of people killed in traffic crashes in the United States might have been. And at the end of this curve, you see that it's starting to drop a little bit. But what's important to note here is while the number of people killed in traffic crashes is going down, which is good and something we should celebrate, it's going down at a much slower rate than it achieved its peak in 2021. So still a lot of work to do to get those numbers back down to where they were before. Next slide. So this is a bar graph that shows what some of the main contributing factors were in terms of the behaviors that people engaged in while behind the wheel. And the number of people who died in traffic crashes in the year 2022, which is the most recent year of data that we have nationally in the United States. And so you see here the major drivers are belts, booze, and speed. This has been true not just currently, but for many, many years. Speeding and alcohol impaired driving in particular making up roughly a third of the number of people killed in traffic crashes in the United States. And you see at the bottom of this chart, passengers of motor vehicles who were unbelted at the time of their crash is about half. Also important to note here is that the safety belt is the single most effective safety countermeasure in the traffic safety space ever created and introduced in the world. It can reduce the odds of being killed in a traffic crash by 50%. And so while belt rates in the United States are pretty high now, about 90% of people who are drivers or occupants in motor vehicles are buckled up all the time. Of all the people who die, a majority of them are unbelted at the time of the crash. And so by getting more people to buckle up is probably the single most effective thing that we can do to save as many lives as possible. We see drowsy driving here. It contributes to about 21% of people killed in traffic crashes. And we'll talk in turn about each of these highway safety behaviors here in just a moment. But you see at the top of this chart, distracted driving, 8%. And the reason why I included it here, because it doesn't look like a major driver of traffic fatalities in this picture. But what's important to note here is that the data on distracted driving is actually really poor in the United States. We don't have very good data about distracted driving behaviors as a cause of traffic crashes. And that's because people would have to admit to the behavior, which most people don't, or there would have to be a witness that can prove that somebody was distracted at the time of the crash. And so for that reason, the data that we have shows about 8% of fatal crashes involve distracted driving behavior as a factor. But we think highway safety experts throughout the United States think that it's closer to about 21% if we had better data on the topic. And so I include it here for you for that reason, just to highlight sort of the unique aspects of distracted driving. Next slide. All right, so we're gonna jump through each of these major drivers and highway fatalities here just to provide you some more context and information. So AAA did a study several years back that looked at crashes that involved teen drivers. And what we found was that about 60% of all fatal teen driver crashes involved some form of distracted driving. And so in this picture, you can see that the major types of distracted driving involved in these crashes included, top of the list, teen drivers interacting with other teen passengers in the car. It could be through a conversation or singing along to songs or whatever that interaction is. And second on that list is using a cell phone or a smartphone. And third on the list is looking at something other than the road, but that's inside the vehicle. So you could have dropped an object or be looking at a passenger or something like that. Next slide. And so now cars, as you all know, have technologies that allows you just to use voice commands to send or receive text messages or complete other tasks while driving down the road. And something that's important to keep in mind is that there are different forms of distracted driving. There's manual distraction, which means that you're taking your hands off the wheel, either to interact with your phone or adjust vehicle controls. There is visual distraction, which means you're looking away from the roadway to, again, interact with your phone or interact with vehicle controls, which is problematic if there's a hazard in the forward environment and you won't see that it's happening. And then there's mental distraction, and that is when your mind is somewhere else and not focused on the task at hand. And you got to keep in mind that our brains are kind of like computers. And if you have too many apps open on your phone, is one example of a computer, your phone tends to run more slowly. And the same is true of a desktop computer or a laptop computer, and the same is true of our brains as well. The more tasks that we're trying to engage in at one time, the more poorly we accomplish all the things that we're trying to do at one time or to switch in between those tasks. And so one of the biggest beliefs that are out there among people who drive is that while everyone agrees that it's unsafe to text and drive, for example, that if you're at a red light or a stop sign, that is a safe time to do it. And so some of the research we did at AAA highlights that when you're stopped at a red light or a stop sign and you're either using voice commands or you're just manually texting or reading an email, and then the light turns green or it's your time to go, it can take as long as 27 seconds for your reaction time to regain to what it would be when you're a 100% focused driver. And so during that period of time, you're moving through an intersection or moving into higher speed traffic. And if you are not fully focused on the task at hand, it can put you and the people in your vehicle at risk. Next slide. So we're going to shift gears now to speeding and pedestrian safety. Most pedestrians don't walk on next to freeways. They're walking in urban environments or in residential areas. And so that's where speed limits tend to be a little bit lower. But we also know from some survey work that we do throughout the United States that a majority of drivers admit to speeding. They admit to speeding in residential areas, and they admit to speeding on highways as well. But this is really important to keep in mind when we talk about residential areas, because that's where people are walking and biking the most. And the speed limit in most residential areas is about 20 miles per hour. But it's not uncommon for drivers of all ages to speed in residential areas. And so what this picture is highlighting for us is the odds or the proportion of pedestrians struck at different speeds, motor vehicle speeds, the proportion of pedestrians killed when hit at that speed. And so 20 miles per hour, which is the most common residential maximum posted speed limit, only about 5% of pedestrians hit at that speed will die. And obviously it increases at 30 miles per hour and 40 miles per hour, but 85% of pedestrians struck at that speed will die in a traffic crash. Next slide. And so continuing on this path of speed here, the AAA did a study looking at a variety of risk-taking behaviors that drivers admitted to engaging in while behind the wheel. Things like speeding, distracted or aggressive driving, texting while driving, running stop signs, and red lights, those kinds of things. And so when we look at all the risky driving behaviors that people admit to, there's one behavior that is common among most people who admit to any risk-taking behavior, and that is speeding. So you can hit the space bar there for me, Roman. In fact, about 72% of all people who admit to any risk-taking behavior also admit to speeding as drivers. And so hit that space bar for me one more time. And so what this means is there's a unique opportunity for law enforcement to really focus on enforcing speed limits, because a majority of risky behaviors also speed. And so in a world where there's a lot of disapproval of law enforcement around the country, police have a unique opportunity to get out there and to enforce laws that really do save lives, and to do the kind of work that we really need and want them to do to keep us all safe while using the roadway, by focusing on speeding in particular, because it will have the greatest return in terms of the number of people saved, not just by speeding, but by all risk-taking behaviors that people might admit to while behind the wheel of a car. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about drowsy driving, or being too tired when behind the wheel. And we don't often talk about being too sleepy behind the wheel or drowsy driving, because it's not something that we proactively seek to do. It's just that we have sports and school and studying and everything else. And so sometimes we are tired when we're behind the wheel just because we're trying to balance all the demands on us and our lives. But one thing that is important to keep in mind, based on some research that we've done at AAA, is that drivers who get less than 5 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period have a crash risk, the odds of causing a traffic crash, similar to driving over the legal limit for alcohol, which is 0.08 in every state in the country except for Utah, where it's 0.05. Next slide. In fact, the more sleep deprived we become, the higher our odds of causing a traffic crash are. And if we get less than 4 hours of sleep in a night, we are more than double the legal limit for, or the crash risk associated with the legal limit for alcohol in the United States. And so I have some life hacks here for all of you, some tips and tricks to keep you safe while behind the wheel if you are tired. Sometimes we have no choice but to drive when we're tired. And so some of the things that you can keep in mind is to travel or to drive only when you're normally awake. And so think about your average road trip with your family or your friends. Most people try to avoid traffic by driving in the middle of the night, but this is when the greatest number of drunk drivers are on the road. And it's also when we tend to be the most tired, and therefore the riskiest ourselves, even if we are entirely sober. So always travel when you're normally awake. Try to rest every 2 hours or 100 miles. Avoid heavy foods like fast food or anything fried, and avoid central nervous system depressants. And so the most common example of that would be alcohol, but many medications prescribed and over the counter can depress our nervous systems as well and make us sleepy behind the wheel. And so try to avoid those. And the last one here is naps aren't just for babies. And the reason why I say this is because when you take a break, if you're feeling tired or you catch yourself nodding off while behind the wheel, keep in mind that one, when you have that moment, you were asleep at the wheel entirely for an average of 4 seconds, traveling 70 miles an hour down the road. It wasn't just a split-second nod, it was 4 seconds that you were asleep on average. And so pulling over to a safe location for you and others using the roadway and napping for at least, but not more than 20 minutes can actually buy you 2 hours of safe driving time. So just a few tips and tricks for you, some life hacks for the drowsy driver. So we're going to switch gears here to drugged driving. And the federal government does a study every couple of years where they randomly stop drivers and ask them if they will provide a blood sample for drug testing to find out how many people are driving with different kinds of drugs in their system. And so in this particular study, what we found was that there was a 50% increase in the number of nighttime and weekend drivers of people who had marijuana in their system. Huge jump there. Next slide. And so an interesting comment here or set of data points on prescribed and over-the-counter drugs is that the United States makes up only 5% of the world's population, but consumes 75% of the world's prescribed medications. Hit that space bar for me, Roman. And over 6 million people in the last year admitted to using prescribed medications non-medically in the last month. And so what that means is that they either weren't prescribed that drug and they're using somebody else's medication, or they're using it in a way that it wasn't meant to be used. In other words, they're using it to get high. Next slide. And this is important because even when we're just following our doctor's advice and taking prescribed or over-the-counter medicines the way that they were intended to be used, can still impair our ability to drive, and all the ways that we know alcohol and other drugs to impair our ability to drive. They can slow our reaction time, they can make us sleepy, those kinds of things. Next slide. And so home stretch here, this is a slide that shows the percent change in traffic deaths that occurred before versus after COVID. And what is important to notice here is that these are all the developed nations on the planet, and that the United States is the only developed nation in the world that saw a big spike in the number of people who died in traffic crashes during a period of time when society was locked down and people weren't driving as much. And so there are some interesting reasons why we think that might be the case. And I'm going to share very quickly with you some of what those are. Next slide. So speeding, you just hit the space bar 4 more times for me. All right, so belts, booze, and speed, I mentioned at the top of my remarks, are historically the major drivers in highway fatalities in the United States. And that is true during the COVID years as well. But what's really important to note here is that when we look at the people who died during and after COVID that we didn't expect to based on trends before the pandemic, so the excess mortality or the people who died that we didn't expect to die, almost all of them died because of speeding drivers, being unbelted at the time of their crash, or impaired drivers. A note on safety belt use. Almost every single person who died as an occupant of a motor vehicle following the COVID-19 pandemic, people who we didn't expect to die but who did, were unbelted at the time of their crash. So there's a trend in the number of people who are making the decision not to buckle up each and every ride. You see here this little pedestrian signal, and I share that with you because since 2013, there's been a huge jump in the proportion of people killed in traffic crashes who are pedestrians. In fact, since 2013, there's been an increase of 81% in pedestrians killed in urban areas, and about a 10% drop in the number of pedestrians killed in rural areas. And so you switch to the next little picture there of the urban or suburban arterial road, and it has a lot to do with the way that we use the land surrounding the roads where we live, work, and play. And so 50 years ago, when urban or suburban arterial roads were created, there were not businesses or housing along these roads. These were roads built to move people in and out of cities pretty quickly. But most of you today, and me, where I live, these roads now have businesses and shopping and places to live all along these busy multi-lane roads without many pedestrian crosswalks that have signals or a little refuge area halfway across the road for pedestrians to hold tight until the light turns green again for them to walk the rest of the way across the road. And so for that reason, a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists are being hit and killed in urban and suburban areas because they're trying to navigate roads that weren't built for pedestrians and bicyclists to use. And the last picture here is of law enforcement. And interesting fact is that since COVID-19 and the experiences like George Floyd's death involving police, there is a huge reduction in the number or in traffic enforcement in the United States. In fact, in many developed parts of or major cities throughout the country, traffic enforcement or citations for things like drunk driving and speeding are down by as much as 50%. And that's unfortunate because enforcing those laws specifically save a lot of lives. And these are not the reasons why traffic stops are being made more often among some groups among others. These are the kinds of traffic stops that save many, many lives. And so we want police to be making more stops for speeding and impaired driving, those kinds of reasons. And we need them to get back out there and doing that. But there's a shortage of the number of law enforcement officers throughout the country. And that is one of the major drivers of why we have such high numbers of people being killed in traffic crashes today. Next slide. So that's just a quick 30,000-foot tour of what some of the major contributing factors to motor vehicle crash fatalities in the United States are and why there's such a spike in the number of people killed in traffic crashes following the COVID-19 pandemic.
Jake, thank you so much for giving that 30,000-foot overview. And, and I think what really helps us to make sure that some of these points we're driving home that we understand is a little pop quiz, right? And so let's see if you're actually paying attention. So we told you that you can get some gifts and some prizes here in this presentation today. So I'm launching a quick quiz right now, and I want to see, were you actually paying attention to Jake's slides? There's 4 questions there. I'll give you a little moment. And while we're putting those polls up on your screen, I'm going to unshare our screen and have a moment here for Damien to share his presentation regarding traffic safety and messaging with your artwork and your PSA. So the quiz is live. Go ahead and participate on your screen. And then while that's going on, I can see some questions coming in already. I love it. I appreciate you all attending and participating in here. And then while that's loading up, we can make sure that Damien has his presentation ready to roll. All right. Ooh, I see people switching their answers. Okay, I love that. I love that. Let's see if you're really paying attention. Mitzi, raise her hand. Uh-oh. All right. Damon, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, let me do that right now.
All right, I'm going to give a couple more seconds here. I still see people switching their answers. I love it. What was Jake saying? Was it 12 seconds? Or was it 27 seconds? Or was it 29 seconds? All right, I'm going to close the questions in 3, 2, 1. Boom. All right. And while I get those results here, I'm going to make sure that Damien is ready to roll. So whenever you're ready, Damien, take it away.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so you got a lot of stats and facts there. That was like, oof, that was a lot there. Now, you are part of this very special project, this competition to make the best PSA, whether it's a poster or whether it's a video. And I want to share with you some tips that some lessons learned that we've learned over the years of doing this, as well as just standard tips. And let me start this off by just introducing myself. I am the executive director of Streets Are for Everyone. I started this organization after my own tragedy, and in February of 2013, I was bicycling in Griffith Park. I was hit. I was pinned underneath the car, dragged nearly a quarter of a mile from the streets onto and down the 5 freeway at freeway speeds. My right leg was ripped off and about 20 pounds of flesh in 2 minutes. It was a hit and run. The individual hit me, never stopped, and was never caught. So the subject of traffic violence, and I call that very intentionally, traffic violence, is something that I know intimately and personally, but it's also something that SAFE works on across Southern California as an issue that we're working on saving lives. And we're very happy to be partnered with AAA as part of this competition. Now, let's just get into how are you going to make the best PSAs? How are you going to take some of those stats and your creative abilities? You're all creative individuals. How do you turn that into something that's award-winning? The first thing is, what is a PSA? A lot of you might already know. You're like, that's easy. But let me just give you a little simple definition. PSA stands for Public Service Announcement. Okay, so a public service announcement is a message that is for the public, that is distributed usually by media without any charge. We don't pay. It's like a free commercial or a free poster put up someplace. And the basic purpose of a PSA is to raise awareness and change behavior. That is what we are doing. You, as creative individuals, are here to make something that's going to raise awareness and change behavior. Okay, so let me give you 5 tips on how to do that. The first one, there we go. The first one is there are roughly 4 different types of PSAs. Now, we're putting these into categories, and honestly, you can blur some of this. People get creative and they make one that sort of is a little bit of both, but if we were to really just put these into categories, there's 4 types. The most common type, and most of you, what you will do, most of the PSAs that we see are called reenactment. Reenactment simply means you are displaying a moment of undesired behavior, followed by what's the result? Showing you are texting and driving. This is probably the most common one that we see is, you're in the car and you pull up the phone and you start texting, and suddenly you get into a crash or you hit someone and that person dies or is severely injured. That's the most common PSA we see in this film competition aspect of it. This is the first year we've had the posters, so this will be interesting to see the different posters that come out. So this is great, and I've seen some really great reenactment PSAs. I'm going to show you one right now. Here we go. Okay, good. So that was reenactment, right? That was clearly showing the what happened as a result of driving drowsy. Started with a little video game, sort of a cute video game there, and suddenly it's real life. And that was really well done. But I'll tell you, if you want to stand out, try a different type of PSA. And I'm going to show you a few other ones here. This next one is called testimonial. And a testimonial is where you have the victim speak about what happened as a result of something bad. So you're trying to change behavior or bring awareness because of a reenactment of what happened. And so testimonial of what happened. And this is a winning PSA.
This ad was supposed to be an interview between me and my father. Sadly, that will never come to fruition.
Every day, about 37 people in the United States of America will die due to drunk driving. That's 1 person every 39 minutes. Drinking and driving does not discriminate. 2 in every 3 people will be involved in a drunk driving crash in their lifetime.
Please don't be the one to tear a family apart. Don't drink and drive. Please don't make us a statistic.
Okay, so you see that was a testimonial. That student was talking about how he lost his dad due to drunk driving. As it turns out, he didn't actually lose his dad. That was an example, like he was sort of he was acting. He was acting. He did a really good job, and it won awards. So that's testimonial. The next type is usually it's what we call celebrity, and that's where you have a public figure or a role model, someone who people look up to. It could be a religious figure, it could be an administrator, or someone that people look up to, that is part of that PSA, showing how something shouldn't be done. I think we have one PSA over the years that was kind of a celebrity. It was a sheriff from a local sheriff that they interviewed. I don't, it wasn't an award-winning PSA, so I'm not going to show you that one. We find that one a little bit harder. Students sometimes have a hard time in terms of celebrity, but if you've got someone that's like a connection to a celebrity who wants to be in your PSA, go for it. That would definitely stand out. We don't have a lot of those. The last one is really important. This one is satire. Now, satire, just to explain what that means, it's doing something creatively to make a bad behavior look ridiculous through an exaggerated story. So you take this behavior and you make it funny, or you make it ridiculous so that people remember, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing that. That is a dumb idea, right? We get this sometimes, and when it's well done, I'll tell you, they really stand out. If you can figure out a good satire, I recommend it. It doesn't mean you can't do any of the other ones. I'm just saying this is my personal favorite. Here's one example from Castaic High School.
Are you sick of these ugly, outdated helmets? Then look no further to our new, state-of-the-art helmets.
These state-of-the-art helmets have changed my life for the better. In fact, I feel invincible when I'm on the road.
Call 1-800-HELMETS and place your order.
The unfortunate truth is, even the best helmets can't protect you from the dangers of the road. Stay aware and stay safe.
Okay, well, that was satire. That caught your attention. I hope that caught everyone's attention. Those are the 4 types. Let's talk about other tips to make PSAs really awesome and stand out. And these, by the way, apply to posters and to video. Obviously, poster, you've got a static image. You don't have 30 seconds, but these still apply to all of that. One is make a PSA memorable. Make it so that we remember it. If you just do something where it's literally just like you didn't put a lot of work into it, you didn't make it creative, it's not going to be memorable. And the judges, it won't be memorable for the judges. And it probably won't get as high points. How do you make it memorable? You can make it funny. You can make it scary. You can do it something that makes you think about, oh, I wasn't expecting that, or that's an interesting, I think the testimonial one was one that made me think when I was watching it. It creates emotion. Some of the best PSAs are ones that create emotion. They make you want to cry, or they make you want to laugh. They create that emotion. And I'll tell you, there's some PSAs that I've watched probably 20, 30 times now, and I still tear up watching them. And it's a 30-second PSA, and I remember those PSAs, and those PSAs are award-winning. Make it so that you can relate to the person in that PSA. If you make that person someone that you can relate to, or that the judges can relate to, that would get more attention. That would make it memorable, make it unexpected, or make it different and creative. Just creative. Sometimes we get like the animated ones, or we had some that were this one PSA that we had. I probably should have put this one up. Is it had literally construction paper. They made the entire PSA out of construction paper. Wow. It was little people made out of construction paper, and were animated by stop motion construction paper, and it was a good, creative way of doing it. And they ended up winning. I think they got silver award that year. So again, make it memorable. There's a lot of ways you can do that. And your creative skills are like, tap into those, go for it. Next thing is point number 3 is include a tagline. So I've got a slide here up about importance of a tagline, and taglines are really important. So let's go. What does that mean? A tagline is a short, easily remembered phrase that a company uses in an advertisement on television, internet, that will make you think about it. Now, we're not selling something. We're not selling milk. You know, the tagline, I don't know if you remember these commercials, got milk. That was the tagline. It was just got milk. And everyone remembered that. Or if I were to say BMW, probably a lot of you would be immediately the ultimate driving machine. That's the tagline. Nike, what's the tagline? Just do it, right? Those are taglines. Well, these are PSAs. So we're not trying to sell a product, but you do want to have that little message at the end that I'll tell you that makes a huge difference. And we've had some really, really good PSAs, very creative PSAs, no tagline, and they didn't get as much. They didn't go as far as they probably would have if they had a tagline. They might have actually won top honors. They got an award. They were really creative. They were well shot. They were really good video, but no tagline. And that tagline makes a difference. I'm going to show you this one right here. This tagline, and you're going to see it, is don't become a statistic. So here it is.
That was close. Don't do what I just did. I almost became a statistic. The National Safety Council reported that 60% of pedestrians and 1 out of every 4 car incidents in the US are caused by cell phone distractions. Don't become a statistic. Hello? 911? I need an ambulance.
Did you see that there? That was a tagline, and that really like came it through. Like it brought that whole PSA down to a close. So taglines are really important. The last 2, I'm just going to go through pretty fast here, but they are also important, which is pay attention to detail. The more realistic you are in that PSA, the more that you believe it, the more that you see that it was attention was paid to it, even if it's an animation. So obviously it's not real, it's animation, but the details in it, that makes a difference. And that will create behavior change. Remember, PSA is there to create behavior change. The last one is focus your message. Sometimes students will be like, hey, I've got 30 seconds. I can add everything in there. We're going to do something about all the different types of distracted driving. We're going to do something about, and they're going to be drunk, and they're going to be on drugs, and they're going to be drowsy. And you know what? You got 30 seconds. Focus it down. Pick something very exact and really make that message impactful and quality, and make us remember your message. Don't try to do tons of different aspects within your PSA. Don't try to do like, well, I'm going to do distracted driving that's texting and he's angry and he's paying attention and he's grabbing his phone. You mean like that's all types of distracted driving. But let's really focus that, and that will actually give you a more impactful message. That is what I've got here for this. Let me stop sharing so we can all come back here. I hope all of that will help sort of get your creative juices flowing. We want those creative PSAs. We want ones that are innovative, that are amazing, that are not just another person picking up a phone, driving distracted. And if you do one that's about distracted driving, make it original, make it impactful and memorable, and you'll win. You'll win with those. There we go. Those are my tips.
I think those were some great points, Damien, and incorporating, even stuff that you saw in the videos, right? Data points, statistics, some of the stuff even Jake talked about. We threw some links in the chat for you from our foundation and NHTSA's website to look at that. And before I play the next pop quiz, I want to share the results of the first one. So right now in first and second place, we've got Natalie and Angelo popping off with 3 out of 4, okay? And then tied right now are, I'm not sure of the first names, but I got M. Ortiz, B. Garcia, E. Garcia, Maddie, J. Zermino, and M. Vargas. So, all right, now, if you haven't caught on, there's gonna be another quiz, and I'm about to launch it right now. So hopefully you were paying attention to Damien, right? And while we're doing that, like I said, I want to also reinforce that we've got resources for you in the chat. Please utilize those links. And also too, Damien had his email out there. Also, you can reach out to us through, I'll put our email here in the chat as well if you have some questions. Public affairs for.
One of the things
Go
that's
for it, Damien.
I think is really awesome about this competition, this poster and film competition, is we have the opportunity for you to get your work, to have it reviewed by professionals, whether they're film professionals or poster and graphic design professionals, and to give you that feedback. And I'll tell you, it's not every single PSA is mentored, and it's called mentoring. It's where you send your work in for a review and to give a critique back. But I'll tell you that more commonly, the best ones, the ones that are winning, you have submitted your work for mentoring. And I really, really encourage it. We have some great mentors out there. Constanza actually on here right now is one of our mentors. She's a professional graphic designer. She works for SAFE and is behind the scenes working on all of this, but she's also a graphic designer. And so, as the poster competition comes around, she'll be giving you some reviews and some very helpful critiques that will increase your creative abilities. So let's do it.
Awesome. And we're very fortunate to have Constanza here with us live right now. I also want to take the opportunity, if you finished your quiz and if you have a question, please, use the Q&A button. You can also type in the chat. I don't see anyone answering any questions just yet, but I do want to offer that opportunity. If you do have some questions, we have Constanza, Jake, and Damien here for a bit longer, because we are kind of slowly wrapping up. I just want to make sure that, if you have any questions, please don't be shy. We'd love to hear any questions at all. So I see the polls. Sorry, go ahead, Damien. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Sorry, I got excited. So while we're waiting for the polls and the questions and things like that, just remember, you have an opportunity to submit more than one PSA. There's some special categories. You can submit a PSA on any number of categories on the list, but you also have the opportunity where there's special award categories. And so, for example, we've got special award for a street racing kills PSA. You can do that on top of, in addition to, and it's an additional cash prize for that one. There's one for pedestrian safety, and that's very much thank you to AAA that's sponsoring the pedestrian safety PSA. And we want to give you, that's again, an additional cash prize. You could win multiple cash prizes. And that's cash prizes for the school and for you as the student team, whichever the student team is. And the same with the poster competition. There's several different categories you could submit an additional piece of art poster and win multiple categories there. So Roman, how are we looking on that poll? How's it coming along?
I'm getting all the answers right now. Just double checking here. Looks like and Vargas is popping off here. I love that. Looking here. We got a lot more participation in this one. So give me a moment here while I compile that. And then maybe during this quick moment here, Constanza, do you want to share any points too as well with, potentially what you're looking for in some of these poster arts, even in PSA, any professional advice that you can share with the students here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when we're talking about posters specifically, well, there is a saying that says an image can communicate more than 1,000 words. And I feel like in this poster competition, we're especially going to see that. I've already been reading some of the submissions, and some of them look like they're going to be very interesting. So I'm very excited for that. And additionally to what Damon was saying about the categories that we have, we just added a new category that's called the art of belonging that I would really encourage people to check out, because it's it's brand new and it's in the website and it's very interesting. And I feel like based on what I've been seeing with submissions for both film and poster, the students' creativity just amazes me, and I'm really excited to see what they can really do in this year's competition.
It's amazing.
And use us, reach out to Constanza. You can reach out to me, but there's also Kylie, who is in the background here, and Constanza and Kylie are those that really run this competition. Reach out if you have questions or you need help, or you just want to throw some ideas. Like this is not just about who can we award a prize to. This is about how do we make award-winning videos and posters that we can then go out and use to save lives. That is what this is about. That's what we're trying to do with all of this. So, and you're a part of that, which is great.
Looks like we might have a little bit of a tiebreaker here. Let's see. So I got Natalie, right? Natalie, B. Garcia, and E. Garcia. We got all three of them right in the last poll. That's awesome. And also, too, you know what? I forgot to launch this last one here. If you don't mind me doing us a solid, where are you zooming in from? Put in your zip code. Are you calling from the 909, the 949, the 310, the 626? I'd love to hear what zip code you're shouting out from. And it looks like, if I've got this correct, and I can double check my work, I've got Natalie, B. Garcia, E. Garcia, and J. Zermano right now placed together. So we'll make sure I'll make sure my data and my research is correct. But it looks like I've got 4 people that are tied. So like we said before, everyone will be getting a little gift from us. And we'll be reaching out to your art teachers at your schools to make sure that you get that for participating today. I also got a request from somebody here. I forgot who they were, but I'll make sure that when we have communication sent out, that you are aware of the students that are in your class that are participating. So I believe we don't have any other additional questions, but I have my names written down. I will make sure that those prizes are given out to you. Once again, we are very thankful for this partnership, working with Streets Are For Everyone and AAA National to make this happen. So thank you so much, Damian, Costanza, and thank you so much, Dave, for your time. And
we have one person that had a question.
Oh,
are we
my
able to open that up,
goodness.
or are we going to do a Q&A question?
I didn't see any question pop up in the chat. My apologies.
Raised hand. Who was it? Oh, there it is. Elias. Yeah.
Elias.
Raised hand.
Let's see here. Elias, would you mind typing in your question? And then I've got Evelyn. Can you type in your question for us? Elias Garcia. Would you mind typing in your question for us, and Evelyn?
And Evelyn also had a question there. So happy to stay on as long as we have questions available.
Please utilize the chat, or if not, as well as it says here, I couldn't access the link from my email, so he sent me the link. Okay. Evelyn asked, Damien, what is the best PSA you've ever seen?
Oh man. First of all, there's a lot of really good PSAs, and they're very creative. And this last year especially, there were some really good ones. That said, the one that, I said there's one that I've watched so many times and I still tear up on it. And you know what? I'm going to see if I can pull this one up. It's called Yearbook, and it's from 2018.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Passaic High School, I think it was.
That one's so powerful.
Claremont High School. So give me a moment here. Whoever the next question is, I'm going to pull up Yearbook, because boy, it is one of those ones where it is so many points of what I discussed about what makes a PSA great. The tagline, it's memorable. It makes you, oh my God, it's emotional. Oof. So hold on here.
And I believe after that, we'll end on the presentation, because we also want to be considerate of everyone's time here. We're coming up to time.
Okay, great. So let me get this screen to sharing screen.
And Natalie, we're actually recording the presentation today, so we may be able to have this sent out to you, okay? Great question.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Yearbook. Here it is, my all-time favorite, I think.
I will become an
I will
editor
graduate
for
from
the
UC Berkeley with honors.
I will become a psychologist for troubled youth. I will become a stay-at-home mom. I will become an activist for
I
the
will
DACA
become a
program.
photographer for
I will
National
write a
Geographic.
series
I will
of
travel
children's
across.
novels. I will enlist in the military after
I will be
graduating.
killed in a collision with a drunk driver 2 days after this photo is taken.
That was so powerful.
There we go. That is yearbook.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. It looks like I believe we are good to go. Once again, I'll reach out to the winners. Thank you so much for participating today. Thank you again, Jake, Damien, and Costanza, for your time, and have a wonderful night. Be on the lookout for the next one coming up, okay, on the 18th of November. Take care, everyone. Take it easy. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jake. Bye, Roman.
Bye-bye now. Take it easy. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.